Good afternoon to you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. My name's Shane Webb. I'm just doing a bit of a welcome, and I'm going to be handing over to the founder of Draftworx. So, Mr. Steyn, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you thinking up this wonderful program. Over to you.
It's an absolute pleasure, but we wouldn't be here without all of our clients. So a big thank you to all of our users, our clients, for all your feedback over the years. Welcome to the 2025 Draftworx webinar series. We're going to be doing a lot of webinars over the next few weeks, so I hope you've joined and registered for all of them. We look forward to hosting you. I, for a change, won't be doing all the talking, so it's my pleasure to introduce you to Nicole Enslin. Some of you may already know Nicole from the demos and training sessions she hosts. And just a quick background, Nicole is a CASA, so she knows what she's talking about. And she's been a user of Draftworx from the early years, so she has a phenomenal first-hand experience on Draftworx, and she's a great teacher. So it's a pleasure to have you part of the team, Nicole, and look forward to you taking everybody through Draftworx. So a big thank you to everybody again. Nicole, over to you. Have fun. And I'll probably steal a few minutes just at the end to talk about everything that's coming in Draftworx this year. There are a lot of things that we've been busy with, so I'm excited to tell you about a few of them. Okay, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day. Cheers.
Thanks all. Thanks for that intro. So welcome all our users. Happy 2025, or as I like to call it, happy 2020 Thrive. May this year be prosperous and thriving year for all of you. Thank you for your time in joining these sessions. We understand it's January. There's lots of deadlines for a majority of you. So yes, we are hoping that the Jan and Feb gloom deadline season will soon be over for you guys. Hopefully with the wonderful help of Draftworx, we're going to take the worry out of January and February for you. When you open your Draftworx, we have what we call our lovely little Draftworx logo. So effectively, today's session is going to be covering a few basics, all right? We want you to understand how the program is being used. We want you to understand where to find certain, steps that would get you to where you want to go. And ultimately, where do you want to go when you're using Draftworx? Well, you want to prepare a lovely set of financial statements that would be easily used. Now, one of the things I really enjoy about Draftworx, and as Earl had mentioned, I have been using Draftworx for quite some time now. And the main reason I love using Draftworx, and I really hope to express this to you guys today, is because it's user-friendly, there's so much automation, and it takes away a lot of the headaches that one has when they are drafting their financial statements. So yes, in some cases, your first session will always feel like it takes a while to get to what you want. But at the end of the day, with our amazing technology and all of that, your next set of financials are always such a breeze to work through, which is why I love it. And of course, we have really nifty little features hidden between the program, which we hope to highlight to you today, as well as in our advanced sessions. Okay, so the first things first is you have a feature here called settings. Now, when I look at my settings, this is quite important in one sense. It kind of helps you go through your system and sets up your files going forward. So the first thing we notice is, of course, I've got an application and I can choose my language. So some users come from South Africa, some not. So we do have your options to change your language for your application. Okay. Now we get to our little yellow block, which is your user details. So you'll see I've got my initials and I've got my email address. Why are these important? Well, it's simply this, okay? For those of us that are using it for, say, audit purposes, or you want to have a flow throughout your financial statements, you want to say, I've prepared it, this clerk reviewed it, the partner finally reviewed it. You want to see who was ultimately responsible, and that's where my user initials come into play. It will actually mark your working papers or your financial statements, indicating that NE did X, Y, and Z. Now we get to our user email address. So why is the user email address important? Simply put is this. Of course, if anyone happens to want to send a file into support, which is available as an option, you may need assistance with a file, we get the email into our support inbox. And in order for us to return the file back to you, we need to know what email we need to send it back. So this email address, very important for that reason. Now we get to my favorite color, purple. Okay, so the firm. Why is firm important and what is firm? So firm basically ultimately is who's responsible for signing off your financial statements. So if you're an accounting firm, naturally you go and fill in your firm name. If you are a corporate, well, you can fill in the details of who's ultimately taking responsible of your financial statements. Why would I want to fill this in here? Simply put, well, if I fill this in here, I don't have to go and repeatedly add this information into each and every file I set up. This will automatically pull through to your financial statements once set up here. Okay, then we get to our blue little block, the financial statements. So here you can see I can choose to apply a default font, all right? So in many instances, you may be copying something from an Excel document and it's in Arial, but you've chosen to show your financial statements in Calibri. Well, this will ensure that all the information copied from one document will pull through and basically show it as Calibri. Also just kind of setting up your firm so that if I'm printing financial statements from my computer and I've got it as Calibri, and if Neo's printing his from his computer, but he's set as Arial on his personal computer, you can kind of at least make sure your firm setup is all in line with your defaulted font so that the financial statements look like they came from the same firm. And of course, thousands grouping. You can choose between comma and space, just these little nicky-knack things that make your financial statements look pretty. Okay. Then we have our profiles. So in our profiles tab, basically what you would note is we've got 3 or 4 folders here. Mine are currently all blank. We do go through this a little bit more in detail in advanced, but for today's session, I'm going to explain the clients folder. So clients folder ultimately is your local clients, where the information is stored. So this is stored in a folder on your local drive under public documents, and that's where all your client files will stay. Now, if I'm a single user, that's fine. I know where all my files are. But if I happen to be a big accounting firm or, one of those big organizations and everyone needs access to the files, I would like to use something called a remote client, or as you can see on the other screen back here, server clients. So server clients / remote clients is basically if your firm has a full-on server that you store files and everyone has access to, then you make sure that you put in a path that you would all be able to read from. Again, this is covered in advance, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. Okay. Once I've set up my information in settings, you will see a lovely little floppy disk, as it's called, alternatively, a save feature. So I'm going to save my information, knowing this is going to go through to all my files. Again, in settings, there's another little option here called select templates. We do go through this in advance, but I'm just going to highlight basically what it is. So selecting your Draftworx templates is the type of financials you want to add to your profile. Okay, so you can see we have a whole list of countries, and you would want to mostly select the countries you are only presenting financials for. So if I am a South African firm, I will use South Africa, and then I'll know I have all the different types of financials that are presentable in a South African format. I can choose Ireland if I really wanted to, and I had an Irish client, well, then I'd have their templates available, and it's a quick and easy thing to add. Get covered more in advanced. Now we've covered server clients. I'd like to mention our web sync clients. Okay. In the event that you don't have a server and you obviously are a big accounting firm and you want everyone to be able to access the client files, especially if you're auditing, you do have a team that works in one file. So what we have got on offer is an online server option. It's called WebSync, okay? You're able to save your files there. These are backed up, okay? And you can recover a backup. And ultimately, at the moment, WebSync isn't being charged. We've been giving our users complimentary access since COVID times, okay? This has helped people who've been working from home. It also helps when the people are, at the client auditing and they want to have access to the same file. This has been great for that purpose. However, coming soon or at a later stage this year, we will be running a little bit of a charge. The costs will be covered and discussed at a later stage. Okay, so those are my 3 little locations. that I can ultimately store or create my files from. We do have an archive clients. So archive clients just basically helps neaten up your client list. We'd cover this heavily in advanced. All right. Now that I've covered where you can ultimately store your files, where you can create your files, how am I going to actually create a file? Right. So on my list, you'll see I get prompted, enter new client here. So this is kind of where I want to go and I'll put my client name. All right. So I'm going to go and I'm going to add my client's name. Okay. It would probably most likely be your client's legal entity name, however you want to word it. But ultimately, you fill in your client's name. Your year end, you'll see there is a little drop down arrow here. So I have 2025, 2024, even up 2026. Okay. So ultimately, what is the tax year or the year end of the company you are going to be presenting financials for? In my example, I'm going to be doing 2024. I'm a little bit behind. It was a really rough year, so I need to catch up. So I select 2024. Then we have period. Okay. In your period, you'll see you've got annual financial statements, 12 months. So generally, most of us do tend to do 12 months. However, you would see we have various options where you can have a reporting period for 3 months, 8 months, just depending on what the requirement is for you to do those financial statements. Our next one is framework. Okay, so in my framework list, you will see that I have quite a little bit of a list. Okay, if I have selected more than one country, what you will notice is that country's abbreviations would be next to my financial statement names. So in my case, I had Botswana and South Africa loaded. So you'll see I've got body corporate plus BW for the Botswana, body corporate plus ZA. That's our South African templates. So what exactly are the frameworks? Well, ultimately, what is your engagement? What type of financial statements are you going to be, required to report on? Am I doing a big company that needs full IFRS? Am I doing a trust? So as you see through the list, you'll see I've got CC for closed corporations, IFRS SME for companies that require IFRS SME. I've even got consolidation files. We do cover that in advanced. I have my full IFRS files. I've got full IFRS consolidations. We do offer monthly management packs, non-profit companies, non-profit organizations, partnerships, schools, sole proprietors, trusts. Okay. As you'll note, I have plus. We like to really encourage our users to use the plus templates. I find them a lot more technologically advanced and a lot more featureific. Okay. So there's a lot of nice little tips and tricks you'll see with the plus template that gives you, the user, a lot more freedom and empowerment to do stuff yourself instead of having to rely on support to do. Okay. So in this example, we're going to choose a simple IFRS SME. Our next little option is called working papers. So in working papers, which we will be covering on the 28th of January, you'll see we have a drop-down list of what type of working papers. So what are the working papers? Well, simply it's a whole bunch of little templates that enables you to either perform an engagement. So for example, if you're doing an audit, we have RAC. If you're doing an independent review, we have Review Plus. Like I say, these will be covered extensively during our working paper webinar on the 28th of January. So at the moment, I'm not going to select any working papers. I just want to do a simple set of financials. I've entered all my information. Okay. I simply press enter on my keyboard to activate me adding my file to my profile. When I do, I just want to mini this a little, you'll see it's going to tell me what company I am in, which tax year I'm in, 2024, where is my file? So if I'm on local, it will say local. If I was on WebSync, it would indicate WebSync. And of course, what version of Draftworx I'm on. Okay. When you enter your new client, you will see an interface here. So I currently see client summary. So what is a client summary? Well, technically, it is exactly that. It's going to summarize all the information in your client file. So for auditors, this is great because you'll be able to see how many working papers do I have, what's been started, what's been marked off as prepared, what's been marked off as reviewed, what's been partner reviewed. Not only does it give you that kind of overall feature, you're also able to at a later stage, once we've worked in the file, see how long I've been in a specific document. So me being a first level clerk, maybe I forgot to track how many hours I was actually busy with the client. Well, I can come into the client and I can see, haha, I spent 8 hours on my financial statements for Sunshine Limited. Great. I know what to charge the client. All right. Alternatively, you can switch your electronic review to get another kind of feedback. So if I switch my electronic review, I can now see, all right, maybe I'm a corporate and I'm not interested in the working paper side. I want to see the financial side. So I can see what my profit or loss is, what was my revenue at a glance. So this just gives you a general overview of what's happening inside your client file. You'll also see a tab that says Notice. So at any point in time when we do issue a really big change, whether it's to do with disclosure or an update that we would like the users to be made aware of, we do issue a notice, such as we did with our IFRS Foundation trademark changes, and one can read through it. Alternatively, you can always close it with the little X. If you've read through it once and you're aware of it, well, then you can just simply close it. Public interest score. I love public interest score. Okay, so public interest score is basically going to tell us, should we be doing an independent review? Should we be audited? Are we on the correct framework? So you will see, basically, you've got all sorts of questions, type of entity. You can select your entity. You can say whether it was independently or internally reviewed and so forth, and fill in the information. Ultimately, building up your public interest score, also just kind of nudging you to say, am I on the correct framework? Right. So I could have said, IFRS SME, before I've even started my engagement, do my public interest score, and I get the note, listen, you were supposed to apply IFRS. So then at least at that point in time, I know I need to update my framework or make the switch then. Instead of having gone and done my entire engagement throughout and spent 20 hours working on it, only to find out I did the wrong framework. So great little feature in that sense. All right, when you're looking at your screen, you will see quite a few folders. So we have client setup and financial data. These two we're going to mostly be focusing on today. The other ones we're kind of going to be really going into depth a bit in advance, but I'm going to touch on them briefly. So taxation tab, right? What we do is we basically give you an ITR 14 in any of your company financials, okay? It'll summarize your financial statements. I really wish this feature was around when I was still a clerk because I had to do this manually. So effectively, what we do is we read the financial statements. We give you 2 pages, which give you all the relevant fields that would be shown on your SARS income tax return. And instead of having to spend 3 hours calculating what those other expenses on a really detailed income statement, we've gone and done that automatically for you. So I will kind of show it off when we look at our financials. Okay. Lead schedules, well, that we'll cover. Working papers, cover in our working papers methodology on the 28th of January. Reports will get covered in our advanced, as will documents. XBRL, join in on the 30th of January, where they will go through this one for you guys. Okay. And then office tools, I'll be using that in a little bit of a moment, but that's kind of where our little folders go. Now let's have a look at client setup. And I apologize because I'm going to sound like a little bit of a broken record for the next 2 seconds. So apologies. In my client setup folder, I have a client setup option. So I'm going to select client setup, and ultimately, this is where I'm going to set up my client. Now, what do we mean by setting up a client? Well, what are a set of financials? Our financials are a bunch of figures, as well as a bunch of words and information from companies' acts or documents or trustees or information like that. So ultimately, your financials are generated from 2 points of view in Draftworx: your client setup and your working trial balance. All right. So when we get to our client setup, you'll have a look, and I'm going to do this as slowly as possible, just to give you a general idea of all the different options we have, okay, or fields. So you'll see I've got general information, I've got nature of business, addresses, shareholders, directors, financial years, additional disclosures, firm address, layouts, or visual, and a naming conventions. Okay, so looking at this, especially if you're a first-time user, you go, oh my goodness, that's a lot of information to fill in. All right, the key on a client setup is this, right? You're only going to fill in ultimately what you need to show on your financial statements. Obviously, making sure you remain compliant with whatever reporting body you are reporting on, but I just fill in what is necessary. So, Nicole, what do you mean by what's necessary? Well, let's have a look at the general information, okay? I have a trading as name. So, if I don't have a trading as name, am I going to go and put in not applicable? What do? Do I have to fill in anything? Well, if I don't have it, I don't need to fill it in. I can keep it blank, okay? So if I keep it blank, ultimately, anything in any one of these fields, so wording, formatting, that's what your financial statements will give you as an output. So I don't have a trading as name, gonna leave it out. I do, however, have a registration number. So me being me, I type out really quickly, I fill in my registration number, and I go on with my merry little business, okay? Maybe I get called out to a meeting with a client. So funny thing is, I'm looking at this, whole interface, and I don't see any button that says save, all right? So don't see any saves over there, don't see any saves at the top here. How do I know my information that I'm typing in is gonna stay there? Well, we do kind of what I like to refer to as a live save. So if I now go and close my client setup, go back into my client setup, any information that I have filled in will remain there. Now, that's great, but what happens if I've made a mistake? Never fear, Draftworx is near. So I go and I look and I'm seeing this registration number and I was like, oh, I added an extra digit. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I can update this information at any point in my engagement, okay? I could maybe fill in what I have available to me at the start of an engagement and you're still waiting for some more information from your client. That's fine. It doesn't mean you can't carry on in the program. You can always revert back to your client setup and update as required. Okay. Right. So where we do require dates throughout the financial statements, you'll see we've got options. So my financials were definitely not approved in March 2021, considering we are in 2025. So I'll choose today's date. Okay. Now I have a look and I've got currency rounding. So what is currency rounding? Well, basically what happens is you import your trial balance and of course, most financial statements never show the cents, right? You always see rounded numbers depending on a category. So effectively, we've applied that same principle. Now I'm going to have a look and I see, okay, well, what categories do I have for rounding? So I've got none. So we don't really recommend none because if you do, I've just got to pull the warning. It is going to say to me, listen, rounding was set to none, and it gives me a whole little warning about, please don't do that because then it'll show the decimal values and it's not always, as required. So I'm going to go back to my default, which is decimals. But before I do, you can see that we go all the way up to billions. So you could round to hundreds and thousands, you could round to billions. I, for one, wish I was in that last category, but goals 2020 Thrive, like I said, might end up in that category one of these days. So I'm just going to select decimals as my client is just a simple client, and we're going to round up to my decimals. When I do use a rounding, we do have 3 rounding categories in your financial statements. They are bank charges, accounts payable, accounts receivable. Okay, so any of your rounded off census will go into one of those categories of your choosing. Okay, I can go and I can add my banking information. So I can go and I can say, okay, well, let's go and put sit down, right? But what happens if I have more than one bank account? Well, I can just go Control Shift Enter and Shift and Enter, add in investing. Okay, I can list my bank accounts as I want to. Right, it is an option available. Then we have nature of business. Okay, so most of us like to have a complete sentence in our financial statements. So I'm going to go and I'm going to say, well, the company provides software services and a full stop, because to me, that's a complete sentence. But when I look at this complete sentence with my really poor spelling, I see that I have an output, which is what it's going to look like in my financials. So now I read the sentence and I see, well, Sunshine Limited, their company provides software services, double full stop. It's not quite what I'd like to see in my financials, so I can always go and update as I deem fit. And again, correct my atrocious spelling. Okay, right, there we go. Now I read the sentence and I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for. So most of us in Draftworx have been in your shoes. We've been either clerks, we've had to work in the industry. So we understand pressure, we understand time constraints, and we understand budgets. So we've offered a few shortcuts here and there within your client setup. Business address, for example, I want to go and I want to add a business address. However, my client also requires that for whatever reason, they need to disclose it as the postal address too. So instead of me having to go type out a very long, detailed address, I have a lovely little button where I can copy from the business address, and I can just confirm to copy all that information down. There we go. I've now brought in information, saving me a little bit of time here and there. We get to our crucial ones, shareholders, directors. Please bear in mind, if you're using closed corporations or trustees, obviously the wording would update to match that disclosure. So one of my favorite things that is part of shareholders and directors is when you have those 10 shareholders and the 10 shareholders are the 10 directors, and they've got surnames as long as the Nile River, and you sit there and you have typing errors as you saw me do earlier, it makes it a little bit tedious and time consuming to do this. So I can go and I can say, you know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to add my shareholder information in the orange bar. I'm going to specify if I need to, and I'm going to go and I'm going to add a holding percentage. So in this case, I'll go 50. You know what? We'll say we South African. Okay. Now I've entered information, but what's crucial in Draftworx is whenever I'm adding something, whether it's to client setup or to create the file, or as we'll see in trial balances, I do need to press enter to action my action. So I'm going to press enter. You can now see I've filled in an insulin. Great. I'm going to add another shareholder. Right. Again, you fill in all your information as you deem fit or as you have to. And again, enter to action it. Now looking at it in my part, that comes to me and they're like, you know what? We need the shareholders alphabetically. All right. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh no, what do I do? Do I have to now go and try, how do I move these guys around? Well, fairly simple. You select whoever you want to move around. So I'm going to go and move A above N. So all I'm going to go and do is got little arrows over here. I can go and I can select up. I've now successfully reordered my shareholders. The little X stands for deleting. So if any of the shareholders are no longer shareholders and you do not wish to have them on your financials, well, you can press the X. It will delete the shareholder. Now, my favorite part comes in. Yes, I can move my shareholders, but now I want to put them all down here where the directors are. So I'm simply going to click on copy the shareholders to directors. And there we go. I've now pulled in my information, again, saving me time or saving me the time of repeatedly typing out the same thing. The only thing we don't pull down is the holding, and that is because obviously this is subject to change depending on the structures of your companies. So one just needs to go and update that. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go down a little bit more. So when we created our file, okay, it asked us for the tax year. So I selected 2024, but it didn't say to me, are we doing February? Are you a March year end? Are you a December year end? So this is kind of where when you're setting up your file, you do want to select the correct year end date. So come to my financial years and you'll see year end date is Feb 2024. Is it correct? In my case, yes, but maybe I wanted to say it is December. So you are able to click on the calendar. A little warning does pop up. So we don't recommend changing the year-end date for management financials. I will cover this in the advanced session on how to actually set up management accounts without changing your year-end. Okay, so I would then be able to go and say, well, this is June, September, March, depending on your entity's year-end. Okay, reporting period, same thing. Maybe you're a startup company, you only have 6 months. That's great. You can select from the drop-down menu how many months you are reporting on. Okay. The number of years to present over here. You'll see by default, we show 2. So that's what the standard requires. But what happens if I was a startup? Then I can decrease it to 1. If I am showing, or I need to show 3 years because 1 year was restated, you can see I just increase the amount of tax years to show. Okay. Some of this a lot of the other features we'll cover in advance a little bit more. Then of course, additional disclosures. So lots of fields you will see, but you're basically going to fill in what you want to disclose in your financial statements. So if you don't want to issue out the UIF number, because you don't have to, well, you don't need to fill in the UIF number. You want to fill in your tax number, that's great. You can go and fill in a tax number. It just depends entirely on what you need to disclose. Do you want to highlight firm details over here? You'll see currently I have no information. All right. Okay. Remember in our settings tab over here, when we were looking at our purple color, this information in your firm setting will basically pull through to your financial statements. So like I said, if you set it up in settings, you don't have to come to here in the firm details in each and every file you open to type out all your firm details. It will simply pull it through from your settings. And the last thing I want to touch up in our client setup, because a lot of these other little features that I'm skipping through, we'll either touch back to it a little bit later. They speak towards presentation and disclosures. So maybe there is something you want to do, like you want to change how something looks. The outlooks basically come through from your client setup. One I want to highlight, my favorite, again, I wish existed when I was in practice and using Draftworx, was naming conventions. So before Draftworx entered our lives, we were using Excel for our financial statements. So us being clerks were super proud of our, fancy looking little Excel financial statements. But someone would come along and they would change the word director to a trustee, for example. That meant each and every sheet we used to have to go and look for the word director, replace it with trustee. So ultimately, naming conventions is kind of the same thing. I can go and I can say, well, I have to say, do a cooperative, for example, and they are in terms of IFRS SMEs. So I can choose my IFRS SME framework. I can come to my naming conventions, can change the word company here to cooperative, and anywhere throughout my financial statements, the word company will switch to cooperative. Or if I have to present my profit and loss in terms of surplus and deficit, again, whatever is the output in my field is what my financial statements would refer to. My directors could be trustees. My shareholders could also be, a member. I can choose from the drop down. Ultimately, this is what your financial statements would produce as an output. Now, I would like to hand over to, I'm going to stop sharing my screen in a second, to Taf. Okay, her name is Tafadzwa, as you can see on the link, but we affectionately call her Taf. She's going to highlight one of her nifty little tips and tricks within client setup to help make your guys' lives as sweet as she is. Taf, I'm going to stop sharing and hand over to you for a seckie.
Hello, everybody. Just adding on to what Nicole's been saying, I love client setup. It's probably my most favorite part of setting up my file because that's where all the automation is coming from. When I know that I have updated it here, I know that it's going to pull through everywhere in my financials. So let's say, for example, it's been a few years, you want to change something quickly, you know that it's the financial year end that has changed. CIPC, it was filed at CIPC, you know exactly that's what you need to change. Instead of scrolling down and then scrolling, try and find where it is. You can just use the sidebar to jump to where you need to go. Time is money for our industry, for where we work, and we want to save as much time as we can. Instead of saying, oh, let me scroll, let me find where it is, you can use the sidebar. Quickly navigate where you need to be, make the changes that you need to, quickly jump, and then it will be saved and updated on your financials. Another quick little nifty trick that I love the most, which is quite new for us, is we have a little filter bar that we can use to search. So let's say, for example, you know that this item that I want to change on my financials, it's pulling from client setup, but I'm not quite sure where. This is your little friend. It's going to do the absolute most for you. All you need to do is search. So let's say, for example, our default in Draftworx is for the cash flow is indirect. My client has come and said, I want it to be direct. I don't want it to look that way. And I know that that setting is in client setup. All I'm going to do in my search bar, I'm going to search cash. Because I haven't completed what I'm searching, but as I'm putting in the letters, I can already see it's filtering for me anything that has a mention of cash and giving me the options. I know I don't even need to finish to say cash flow because what I'm looking for is right here. So all I need to do is change here indirect, direct. And automatically on my financial statements, the cash flow will be changed from indirect to direct. So not to worry, not to stress, quick, easy automation, and your life is simple and time has been saved. Another quick little item that I want to show you guys as well. You know, sometimes you have a client who says, send me the financials right now. We want to have a look at them. We're not sure when we're going to sign. Just send them to me. I don't know the date. I don't know the date. Can you put a blank line for me? When you go on the financials, whenever there's a date which is pulling from your client setup, you're like, there's a formula there. What can I do to put a dash? I don't want to override my formulas. So all you have to do is search here, signature date, signature date. And immediately I can see here, it says signature date setting. And there's a little drop down here. Currently it says date, but if I change it to blank line, wherever on my financials, there is the signature date. Where that client wants a blank line, it will put a blank line for me. I'll show you guys quickly as we navigate. So for example, on the response sheet, usually there would be a date here. Just to make sure our clients are always happy and your clients are happy. This quickly automates and changes it everywhere on your financials, on your response sheet, on your reports, wherever there was that date. So that's me. That's my quick little trick. I'll hand over back to Nicole. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I love what you've just shown because that's what we like to highlight in Draftworx is we want you to save as much time instead of trying to scroll through and look through things for hours and hours and hours. It was a really great feature to show off that shortcut. We want to save you time because in your industry, as Taff proudly said, time is money. So that is where we like to focus on Draftworx. That's also one of the reasons why we all love it over here. Now, we've covered your client setup. Of course, this is where you pull in all your lovely little information that you want to add to your financials. But like we said, financials are a two-part system. I either need to show, obviously, who your shareholders and directors are, but where's the real value in your financial statements? Well, that comes from your trial balance. So we're now going to touch up on our financial data tab. So the financial data tab, what is included in it? Why is it important? Well, it's important because that's where we're going to get your figures from. That's how you're going to build your amazing looking financials. So working trial balance, you can see I can do some journal entries, very simplified cash book. And of course, the last tab over here, you'll see, depending on what you are doing. So I'm doing IFRS SME. You will see IFRS SME plus financials. That's where I know where to find my financials. If I was doing CC or closed corporation, you would see CC plus financials. If it was full IFRS, IFRS plus financials. So you'd know that's where you're going to find your financials. But if I opened it now, it would be kind of boring and not very information because there's nothing of value in it yet. So we're going to focus on our working trial balance. Again, right. I've opened my working trial balance and I'm going to navigate through a bit of the tools at the top here and just cover some of them. So of course, working trial balance, well, this is where I'm able to pull my financial statement information into. As you can see, I've got a few options here. So quick assign will cover once I've pulled in a trial balance, because this is basically where 99% of your work comes from when you're looking at financials. Okay, so we're going to cover that in detail. You have import options. Okay, these we will cover in advance, but as a touch, I can import from any one of these accounting softwares. If I'm using Pastel or QuickBooks, there you can see I can go and I can choose one. Maybe I'm using an online version, so I can pull in from Xero, I can pull in from Cloud, I can pull in from QuickBooks. So again, this would be direct imports from my accounting software package, or alternatively, if I'm using the desktops, I can go and I can pull in from there too. Okay, all right. Now, when I look at my working trial balance, I see I've got tax here, and I see I'm 2024. Great, so I am doing 2024. But what happens when I want to do a prior year comparative? As most of us know, when we do start up fresh, we're obviously doing the current year, but there's 99% of a chance that there is a prior year. So how do I get my prior year? So I don't see a 2023 anywhere on the screen. So I simply go to the button here that says add prior year. Yeah, when I do, I now see, woohoo, 2023 is showing. Okay, it is still blank, still have to do a little bit of work, but at least now I know I've got a comparative year and I've got a current year. Now, depending on where you're going from, okay, you can add an additional prior year. So we like to really recommend 3 tax years if you do have the information available. This just really helps in automating your cash flows. I will explain it when I hit my cash flow, but really cool if you have got the possibility to pull in 3 years, by all means, pull in 3 years. It's not going to cause any damage to your system. It's just going to actually help you automate things even further and make your life so much simpler. Okay, but for now, I'm simply going to pull in my 2023. Where am I going to pull my 2023 in? Well, I've got a spreadsheet. Okay, my client gave me, well, they don't use any one of these systems that I've got. That's fine. So I'm going to pull in a spreadsheet. Okay, go and I find my spreadsheet. Now, the nice part about the spreadsheet is it actually doesn't have to be in any format whatsoever. We just actually focus on a few crucial items. Okay, you can see I've got import from Excel. I have an assign account number. So account number is actually one of the most important things when it comes to your trial balance, because you want something unique. You don't want duplicated account numbers. If you do, we are like, you can't have 1,000 accounts, because we need to make sure we are assigning individual line items to a specific place in your financials. So account number, always key to have in your trial balance. Does it have to just be a number? No, it can be a number. It can be a number /000s, it can be numbers and letters. It can just be letters. Okay, as long as it is unique, you're good to go. All right, then I just want to select the correct tab because I see I was on 2023. Okay, then of course I now want to assign the account number. So how do I tell the system that my account number is column B? Okay, I go and I click assign account number. And when I do, you'll note that the required field turns a little pale blue. So I go select my account number. Now I'm going to say, cool, account name. So I know most of us are very good when it comes to numbers and remembering that account number 1000 was sales, but we have so many files that we do, we tend to get a little bit confused. Well, at least I do. Okay, so I'd like to know that the account number 1000 is actually sales goods, because it's going to help me in the long term when I want to know where I need to take it to my financials. So assign account name. I see account name is column C. I'm going to click on it. Okay, so you can see simple, little, easy. Click on one button, tell it where I want to pull that information from. Now my trial balance, as you can see, my figures were in the first column. So again, there's no need for a specific structure as long as you know exactly where your information is coming from and you're telling the system the correct column. So now I get assigned debit and assigned credit. Why would these be important? Well, they're the money news. They need to tell us what the financial statements actually, were we profitable or did we make a loss? Okay, so here we go. Assign debit. I see that my figures are in column A, so I'm going to go and assign debit. But I'm looking at column A. negatives and positives in the same column. That's fine. So like I said, doesn't necessarily have to be in a specific format. You can have your debits and credits in one column. You could have your debits and credits in different column, which I'll cover when I import 2024. As long as we are telling the system where you pull that information from, we're going to do all the magic behind the scenes for you. We'll know what you mean. Okay. Then, of course, I've got two tabs here, assign link and type override. I'm going to cover that in advanced. And if I was doing a consolidation, also, I would just need to tell it. But these are advanced topics. We just want to get a nice little set of financials out today. So I see a clear existing amounts and it is ticked. What is clear existing amounts? Well, the beauty with importing trial balances into Draftworx is this. Maybe your client gives you a set of trial balances today, and in a week's time, they give you a new one with new changes. And you're like, but I spent the whole of last week getting my financial statements ready. Now, what do I do? So we have this beautiful thing in Draftworx where you can import your trial balance as many times as you want to. Basically, the clear existing amounts is just going to clear their existing amounts, replace it with your updated value, and you're not going to lose any of the work you've already done when it comes to linking or telling it where it belongs in the financials. Lovely, especially when it comes to management accounts or anything like that. You can pull in your trial balance as many times as you want to. Automatic linking after import, I'm going to touch up in a moment once I've pulled in my TB. And then you'll see a from row, and mine says 4. So if you look at my Excel document, row 4 is basically where my financial information started. If I had started in row 1, I'd pull in information like sunshine, limited trial balance. I don't want to pull that information in. I just want to focus on the actual trial balance, financial info. Headings, not so important for me. As you'll see, once I import, we'll see why I don't need the headings because we allocated to the headings for you. And of course, I'm going to import into my opening balance. So I simply press import. And we see now, great. Okay, let's have a look. Got my account number column pulled in, got my names pulled in, I've got my balances. I look at the bottom where it says 20 entries and I can see 0, 0, 0, 0. So what's that telling me? It's telling me my trial balance is in balance. If for whatever reason I had imported an Excel TB and I had figures at the bottom line, well, I'd need to relook at my TB and figure out where those differences are coming from. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to have a balanced set of files. Okay, so now that's cool. We've got information in. Great. Let's go and have a look at my financials. Aha, it's going to give me a warning. Okay, it's going to tell me, listen, sorry, Nicole, you're jumping the gun a little bit. You do need to help us. Okay, so I've either got a missing account or link. So if I have not linked it, it can't open my financials because my financials don't know where all these lovely little figures belong. So now I need to tell them where they belong. So how do I do that? Well, simply put this. Okay, you'll see the tab here, quick assign. I've got a few options, okay? So automatic linking is basically kind of exactly what it implies. It's automatically going to link based on what the account name is, okay? It's great. You can use it when you're using Sage and zeros and stuff like that. The only thing is it does assume it. So as accountants, we all love that word, professional skepticism. So I do need to apply it because what I might link to, say, let's use depreciation as an example. Maybe Draftworx has linked your depreciation automatically to the cost of sales option. That's not where your client wants it disclosed. They want it in the expenses option, okay? So then I would be able to update it. So if I do use any one of the quick assigns, always please keep in mind just to review it and make sure it is actually in line with where you'd like to show it. Okay, then we've got what we call our smart linking. So I am going to highlight it today. I just want to do a few other things before I show it off. But basically, your smart linking is using a bit of machine learning to automatically link the TB based on millions of little historical data points across Draftworx, okay? As it keeps learning, it keeps updating, and it keeps becoming more accurate. Again, I'm going to throw in professional skepticism there, guys. Why? Well, you still need to make sure that maybe what I consider a link for depreciation, again, we'll use that one, as cost of sales, but you need to disclose it elsewhere, then you need to just update it and review it. So again, use it if you must, but please always keep in mind to just simply run your eye through it, make sure you are happy with the allocations. Now, we go back to the show or hide link numbers. So show or hide link numbers. Now I'm going to just scooch my little screen over a little bit over here so everyone can kind of get a broader idea. So my screen has now split in two. I've got working trial balance on the left-hand side. As you can see, it says working trial balance 2023. Lots of blank rows there. And then I've got link numbers. Now, when you look at the link numbers and you're a first-time user, it can feel a little overwhelming because I'm going to have a look and I'm going to scroll down fairly slowly just to kind of give you guys a broad idea. There are at least 4,000 links, I think, if my memory serves me correct, included in a file. Okay, so you're looking at this and you're like, oh, good golly me, what am I going to do? Like, I don't even know where to start. All right, this is going to bring me to our lovely green color, which Taf's so lovely highlighted. So remember when she used her client search, she said it was a filter bar, okay? So wherever you see green in a field like this, basically it implies you can use it to filter. We're accountants, we love filtering, we love finding out information. Great stuff, cool, awesome. That doesn't help me, Nicole. What am I going to do? This stuff still looks very unfamiliar to me. So entirely depends on you, the user. So maybe you can see my first item says sales goods, okay? I could look for the word sales, okay? So I'm going to look sale, but now when I filter, it's going to filter anything with the word sale in. So now I see current liabilities. I still have to use the drag drop to try and find, oh, now there's cost of sales of goods. Oh, goodness me, what to do. So I can filter detail for sale. Where do sales show up in my financial statements? So we've got a filter bar here called category. So the unique part about our link numbers is this. Each unique link belongs somewhere in the financial statements. Where's the somewhere? Well, let's have a look at the different types of categories. So I'm going to clear my filter for the categories to highlight this. But I can clear my search. I'm going to open my category and see. Okay. I have cost of sales. So if I know for a fact I'm looking for something to go on cost of sales, well, I can filter cost of sales. And the ironic or the useful tip is if you see your category says cost of sales, right? And in brackets, we've got COS, okay? We've abbreviated it. Now if I go to the link column, I'm making a connection here. I see that my link number starts with my category, cost of sales. Okay, so nice little connection there that we've made. Okay, cool, cost of sales, current assets, you know, there's my current assets, there's my CA link. Awesome. Discontinued operations, not fun, but it is available as linking. So you can see if I filter discontinued operations, there are my various links that I'm able to select from. But I skipped a unique one. So I'm not going to go through every single one, but you'll get the idea. There's current liabilities, CL, expenses, income, equity options, all the non-current assets and liabilities, your other income, your other comprehensive incomes, and of course, everyone's much feared tax category. Okay, awesome. But there's two important categories, not necessarily important because they trump every other category, but because they're just so much more awesome, because we've really done something cool with the links this year. So I'm going to filter current. To me, current doesn't actually indicate anything. It's not telling me whether it's an asset. It's not telling me whether it's a liability. So why would I have current? Well, I like to call this the flexible link. Okay, what's a flexible link? Simply this. Those pesky little accounts at year end, such as VAT, such as tax, such as bank accounts, such as loans, that have that lovely ability of, say, in 2023 being a liability, and then suddenly in 2024, it's an asset. Well, instead of us now having to, add a new account so that you can have your prior year showing a current liability, your current year showing a current asset, if you indicate current from the get-go when you are linking, beauty of Draftworx is you're going to open your financial statements and it's going to have done that split based on this link. And we also have its counterparty, the non-current. Okay. So if you do happen to be looking for something and you don't want to go and add a new entry to split something because last year it was an asset, now it's a liability, look in our current or our non-current sections, and there you will find what you are hopefully looking for. All right. Okay. Now, great. I've spoken up our links so nicely, but how do I actually get our links there? All right. Now we're going to go back to our sales. Okay. And I'm going to look for sale. I know that my category should be income. And there we go. Wham, bam, a lot of revenue links. Okay. So we've obviously taken into account that you don't just get one stream of revenue, you get a few. So you can at least have a look and see, well, I've got I.000.00001, and that is my revenue sale of goods category 1. I can then go and do my next category, 001, or I can go and I can have a look. I've got some farming income for our dear old farmers, valued farmers, should I say, because without them, we wouldn't have food. We've got sales for fees. So it's just a case of trying to search for what you're looking for. Okay. I now see what I want. So I want this link. Okay. Simply put, the first one. And where do I want it to go? Well, I see I've got sales goods. So I like to just highlight that if I'm going to select a link and I want to link it, I make sure it's blue. When it's blue, I know I've selected it and I'm going to apply it. So how do I get this little link to the left-hand side? Simply put, I'm going to just double click on my mouse. So double click and waha, I've now got a link. I've got a description. Awesome. Okay. What else am I looking for? Okay, we've got fees. So let's type in fees per se. Now, what I want to highlight is I don't have to necessarily select each line item. Okay, I can just kind of follow the flow and I go and I look for fees. There we go. Got revenue fees 1, right? I see that my disclosure description says fees. Well, maybe I want to change it so that it says sales fees. Okay. So if I want that change in my financials, click on my disclosure description and I'm going to type in sales and fees. Okay. Because ideally output is hopefully what's going to show up in my financials. And I'm going to double click and you'll now see that it's linked my sales fees. Okay. I'm going to switch things up a little bit and I'm going to say, all right, I'm having a look and I see repairs and maintenance garden all the way through to repairs and maintenance roof. Great. Now, instead of having to go look for repairs and maintenance, double click assign, next repairs and maintenance, double click assign, seems a little tedious if I have 5 or 10 links that I have to just show in one line of my financials. Well, I have my favorite feature that I love here. I'm going to look for repairs and maintenance. Okay, right. I see my repairs and maintenance. I just want to show it as deductible on my apps. Okay. Now, instead of me, as I said, going double clicking, fine, seems a little tedious. I can do the following. So I'm going to hold in control and I'm going to just select all my repairs and maintenance. Okay. So I've selected what I want to go to one particular link. While still holding in my control, all I do is double click on that repairs and woohoo, a whole lot of links done in one simple swift move. Okay. All right. Now, what I want to focus on is our smart linking. So I mentioned the smart linking. I'm going to show it off in the basics because it really is awesome. It does speed up your process quite a bit. So let's highlight the smart linking and see how well I get my assumptions. So I click on smart linking. It's going to ask me, are you sure you want to continue? Well, yes, I am. I'm fairly certain I want to do this. So I'm going to go and do this. Okay. It's going to run through a little check and it's going to give me like an overall confidence level. Okay. So confidence level is great. Right. This is going to kind of highlight where it thinks it's gone right, or let's have a look. So bank charges, for example, I see a 93%. It's allocated to bank charges. Am I happy with that allocation? Yes. Okay. Depreciation motor vehicles. Okay, it's giving me a bit of a 68%, and it says motor vehicles. So I'm assuming this is correct. So let's just have a look at the link. Okay. If I want a shortcut view of links, I can click on the little double-sided arrow, and I can see what it says. Aha, depreciation, motor vehicles owned. Awesome. Am I happy with my linking? Yeah, I am. If, however, I wasn't happy, let's say the motor vehicle was leased, you can see we do offer the additional linking. So you've got a choice between owned assets, you've got a choice for leased assets. Okay, right. So again, fairly happy with that assumption. So I'm not going to change my link. Have a look through. Okay, we have an account called cookies. Okay, obviously we really like to eat our cookies. You know, tea time is great when it comes to cookies. So what am I going to do? It says other expenses. I don't want it to say other expenses. I want to see my cookies. Okay, so again, I'm going to go to show or hide link numbers just to split, because I want to highlight a few other things. So we're looking for cookies, guys. Are we going to find cookies? Oh no, there's no cookies. Why? Cookie won't say them all. But it's fine. What am I going to do if I'm looking for a link that I can't find? It's simply this. Okay, if we can't find what we are looking for, okay, we do have other options. So I know cookies should be an expense, so I can go and I can look for your other expenses. Okay, you can see we list up to 20 different other expenses. So what am I going to do? Just change my disclosure description so I can find my cookies again. Once I do, I know that that's where my cookies are. If you would like to, you know, switch up your show or hide link numbers a little bit and see the view on your trial balance, we do have a little bit of a drag column option. Okay, so maybe I want to just filter by category. So I'm going to take my category. So you can see I've highlighted the word category, it's blue, and I'm simply just going to drag it to the top. Okay, I've now changed my view of my TV. So instead of having to filter through all the options, I can go and say, well, you know what, we're looking for expenses. There's my category. I open the grouping there. I've now, you know, at least know I've got my category filtered. That's not how I want the view to look. Just go and drop it back in. It gives you your original view. So here's a nice little drag drop view. Okay. Just going to run my eye through the rest of the categories here. Telephone, I enter it onto telephone. So you can see how the smart linking has kind of gotten pretty much everything to where I'm happy with. One thing I want to highlight is check my motor vehicles. Okay, it's taken it to the asset motor vehicles, but it also made the connection with the depreciation. Took the two together so that I should know that when I open my financial statements and I look at my fixed asset note, they're going to be in the same area. So I don't have to now come back and change things. Awesome. Okay, so we look, see, everything else to me seems great. Okay, all right, shareholders loan. Okay, it's taken it to a current liability, other payables. Don't want that. So another way I can change my linking is I'm going to click on the double side. Okay, shareholders loan, just as a note, you're looking for the word owner. Okay, because that is who your shareholder is. So if I go and I look for owner, I'm going to just drag down. It's not a current liability in this sense, well, in my financial sense anyways. I look, I find my owner 1. I've got owner 2, owner 3. Is that what I want the financials to know them as? Nope. I would like it to show it's shine. Okay. Press enter, select. There we go. I'm happy. Okay. Really happy with my 2023. Checking my 2023 apps. Everything looks good. Great stuff. Now, let's look at 2024 because that's what we're focusing on. So 2024, cool. I've got some prior figures in. Haha, all my links are there. So again, beauty with Draftworx is this. On the initial setup, yes, I am, okay, obviously I have a very small trial balance. So it looks really awesome because it's cool and fast when we do this. In your cases, you may have a longer trial balance, but the beauty of it is this. You go, you set it up like we have now, and it's there forever, okay? Obviously, you can update it as you please. I think I do that one in advance where I'm going to change a few things up, but ultimately, whatever I have done stays there. When I roll this file over to 2025, this information will still be there. So let's pull in my 2024 info. So again, we go back to my spreadsheet. I find my 2024 info, and I'm just simply going to tell it again where I want all my information to come from. Assign the account number. There we go. Assign account name. There we go. Now you can see I've got a debit column. I've got a credit column. My credit column hasn't got the minuses in front of it. Is Draftworx going to be able to tell that that has a minus? So let's see. So assign my debit, I go to my debit column. Assign my credit, I go to my credit column. Okay, nice part is, have a look here, got my 26 rows, 141997866. I know for a fact that this is balancing. Still happy with that setup. So great, I'm now going to import. When I do import, what am I going to notice? Okay, well, everything that has a comparative still linked. Any new accounts that have been identified would be unlinked. So therefore, I would just need to go and apply however I want to link it. Either use your show hide, use your double-sided. Alternatively, we can just go and say show all, smart linking. Just going to use the quick and easy one. And we're going to just check if it hits the nail on the head again with the new ones. So finance lease, it's taken it to E900, trade and other payables. So I just want to quickly check that. Okay, it is taking it to interest paid. All right. However, I would like it to say finance lease. So I just scroll down a little bit and I look for it. I think I missed it. Well, it's coming up. Oh, there we go. So there you'll see finance lease obligations. I'm going to leave that hovering just to highlight something for you guys. So when we looked at depreciation, okay, obviously I've got expense categories for it. I also have cost of sales categories for it. I also have a mix between owned assets, leased assets. So we also have a feature within Draftworx where we split your interest paid in terms of your cash flow. So if I hover over this finance lease, you can see it's for cash flow financing, okay? If I go up where the 090s are, you will see it says cash flow operating. Depending on where you want that interest to show in your cash flow, you've got to just select the correct link. 90 or E090 is always for your operating cash flow. E091, financing. So, okay, want to update that one. Let me just quickly go and select it, changed it. Taxation expenses there, great stuff. Don't really have anything in there, so I'm going to highlight something new for us. Let's just check everything else. Tax payables is going to trade payables. Not really where I wanted to go, so I'm going to look for tax. Oopsie. And you'll see there's my C link I was talking about. So if I am able to set off my tax, I can use the C dot. If you are not able to set it off, you do have the categories for CA or CL. Again, you just need to decide which one to use. Okay, and my finance lease obligations second to that, so I'm happy. Looking at my trial balance, I do, however, note that I have a zero account. Do I need to have that zero there? So let me take you through our delete options. Okay, now, if I were to clear my trial balance for selected year or all years, that would basically wipe out all your information. You'd have to start afresh, start linking again. If I say clear link numbers, it will take out your link numbers, allowing you to redo your linking, okay? If I say null balances, it'll keep your account, your name, your links, your descriptions, all there, but make your opening balances zero, okay? Delete row will delete the highlighted row if it is zero. If there's a figure, it will not. If I say remove empty accounts, we're going to see that that tax will suddenly disappear. Now I have no zeros in my trial balance. Just quickly want to say thank you to our dynamic duo on Q&A. I know you guys are handling those questions like bosses. I do just want to mention that at the end of the session, if there isn't a question that has been directly addressed yet, we can maybe go over it at the end of the session. So yeah, that is that. Let me turn off my video and let's continue where we left off. So, all right. We've got our trial balance in order. There was one thing I did want to just highlight, okay? Template tools. In the event, yes, we couldn't find cookies. Alternatively, we found the other expenses. Hopefully during the break, you all got some cookies. In the template tools feature, while you're in your trial balance, you'll see a lovely little button here called Add Links. We will cover this in advance. I just want to highlight it for you for now, that if, for example, you had used all those other expenses, or you, for some reason, have 10 bank accounts and you can't find the additional links, okay? Don't fear. You can actually come here, and this is why Plus Template gives you that freedom, that, like, you know, that hoo-hoo, I've got power. I can go in and can say add links. I would obviously choose my financials because that's where the links will go. And I can, from this screen, go and say, okay, well, I need more other expenses. You can see I can then increase them from 20 to 50. If it wasn't the other expenses, it was the bank loan or the bank accounts. You can see I can go from 5 to 25. This we do cover a little bit more in detail in the advanced, but it is available at a trial balance point of view. Alternatively, if you ever get stuck at this, we have a phenomenal team on support. We will cover how to chat to our lovely support team in a moment or during the session, but there is that feature available at your trial balance point of view. Okay, guys. So we spent a lot of time getting everything right. Why did we want that? Well, the beauty again, and I always call it beauty because Draftworx is beautiful. I love it. Automation, okay? We've gone and we've told the financial statements where everyone belongs and all of those, but why is it crucial? Well, when you go and you do all this linking, there's like a 3-step process that happens in the background in your financial statements already for you. And I love it because it's automation. So step 1 is when I tell the trial balance where something belongs, first things first is it's going to actually take that amount and populate it on one of my lead schedules for me. Okay, so we do actually generate a lead schedule automatically based on where you've indicated it belongs. The other things it's going to do is when we look at our balance sheet, you'll see I automatically have note numbers attached to anything that has an amount, whether it's in my balance sheet, whether it's in my income statement. So we automatically open those notes as well for you. And then the beauty in it is, if that note is open, your accounting policy automatically opens. So again, we kind of speeding up that process, saving you that time in trying to find all that information. We kind of just open generally by default what you should hopefully disclose at a bare minimum. You have the power to add to it, take away from it, but let's see that beauty in action. So I'm going to go and I'm going to open my financial statements now. All right. When you open your financial statements, if you are not familiar to Draftworx, okay, you will note, however, it kind of has this little Excel-ish look to it, okay? So I can see format. I can see formatting cells, auto summing, insert, delete. Okay, we're not exactly Excel. We do support a lot of the Excel formulas. So your sum ifs, your auto sums and all of that, because we kind of wanted something that was user-friendly, okay? And this is super user-friendly. You can build your own note. You can add a table. You know, pretty much if you think it, you can most likely do it in Draftworx. It's very creative in that sense. Okay, so I'm looking at my financial statements, and at the bottom here, I have all these various amount of tabs. Okay, so what are these little tabs that I have? Well, simply put, I've now got sheets that relate to a page in my financial statements. So on default, we open all of these because we don't know what your engagement should be. That's up to you to decide what you want to report on. So lots and lots of sheets at the bottom. Now, what do I do with these sheets? So all these sheets form part of your content or your financial statements. So I have a tab at the top here. It says content. Awesome. What the you'll notice is everything that's got a dark blue color. So I'm just going to go through the first three. Checklist status cover. I look at the bottom, I've got checklist status cover. So if I have dark blue color, it basically means it is open. It will be part of my financial statements. It will print. Okay. So what happens if I don't want something to print? Because I'm looking at my financials and I see I've got an audit, a review, compilation, an officer, and a SOCE report. Oh, that's a lot of reports. Okay. Now, again, when you start your engagement, we can't assume that you're doing an audit, so you only need the audit report. Again, this is you. You need to say, haha, I only need this report or I need that report. So now I need to go and tell Draftworx, okay, cool. What do I want to be part of my financials? So as a placeholder, I am going to keep the audit report. I'm going to turn off my independent review report. We'll keep my compilation, turn off my officer, turn off my SOCE. Okay, I've got a balance sheet, SOFP, SOCI, SOCE, cash flow accounting policies, notes 2, notes 3. Great, okay, all looks good. On the sidebar here, you can see there is a panel with a little side arrow. So if you can't exactly see what I am seeing, just open it up a little bit or spread it out. Just by clicking on that line with the side arrow, I can then see more options, okay? Now I see, okay, wait, I've got a detailed income statement. Okay, that seems fairly simple in a set of financials. Now I have a ratios sheet. So ratios is cool for all of those that are doing independent reviews and audits. You can have a look, you can see we have done a few, okay? If you want to include it in your financials, if you have to report on it, by all means, it's there for you to include. If you do not need to, you simply deactivate it by clicking on it. And you only need to click on it once. There's no double clicking, just one simple little tap, okay? And I'll see I've got my tax calc, awesome. Report sustainability. Okay, so we've included a sustainability report template. So for anyone that has to use that report, well, there you go. You have the template. It's easily updatable. You can type into it and obviously make it your own, right? We've just provided the template. You'll add all the magic to it. Okay, I'm not going to use mine currently, so I'm going to turn it off. And earlier on, when I was referring to that taxation tab, here's that lovely little spreadsheet I was talking about, my ITR 14. Okay, so there you'll see, it's basically read my financials. Obviously, I haven't done much work in it, but it's picked up I'm a small business and it's gone and it's pulled in all the figures to my relevant fields, okay, that require filling in. Great, awesome, got it. Now, what am I going to do is I'm going to have a look and I'll see, there we go. That other expenses, it's gone and it's summarized it for me. I didn't have to now go and spend hours adding my financial statements to try and get that figure. We have summarized it. You can then print this and give it to your tax department or give it to the client who, if they submit their own tax return, obviously after checking that your financials are accurate. There we go. We've simplified the tax return. Okay, I'm going to turn mine off for now. But now I see my financials show checklists and status. I know back in practice, I never used to see a checklist and a status included in a set of financials that I used to distribute. So why are they here? What is their purpose? And what do I do with them? Okay. So your checklist is simply this. It is a checklist. It's got these standards available. So if you're doing IFRS, if you're doing IFRS SME, effectively, it's going to give you those standards and guidelines. So if I open up my IFRS for SMEs, okay, and let's have a look and see. I have not done share-based payments in a while, and my client comes to me with a share-based payment. I need to know how to disclose that. So what does the Act say? Well, if I open the little grouping over here, it's going to tell me this is the disclosure. Okay, read through it. You're like, yes, yes, yes. I see a blue word, normally indicates it's a hyperlink with an underscore, and it's referring me to notes sheet 3. So if I go to notes, if I click on it, it's going to take me to where I can find that note. So again, I can use this in one of two ways. If I'm looking for a note, I can use my checklist. If I want to make sure that I am complying with IFRS or IFRS SMEs, I can refer back to my checklist. If I don't need it, all I need to do is simply deactivate it. Okay. And we get to my status sheet. And my status sheet is not looking great. It's got a whole lot of figures. Awesome. Why? Okay. And also, what is a status sheet? Well, your status sheet, depending on who you are, is either going to be your best friend or your worst nightmare. So best friend for the partners, possibly worst nightmare for a clerk. Just depends how you want to look on it, you know. Every lining has either a silver lining or the grass looks green on the other side. You decide. Okay. But effectively, your status sheet is going to indicate to you a few mishaps here or there. All right. So we're having a look and we see, okay, for example, I have a retained income issue. Okay. But I know what that is because I know where it's coming from and we're going to fix it in a moment. So I've got my status sheet. It's telling me my balance sheet is even out. Goodness, my equity's out, my cash flow's out, my property equipment's out. How do I know it's telling me it's out? Well, the status sheet effectively does this. I like to call it the crosscast guru. So it's reading my financial statements, i.e. balance sheet all the way through to your notes. It's reading your trial balance, and it's simply just nudging you to say, hey, Nicole, either you're missing information in your financials or your trial balance is incorrect. Okay. So let's have a look and highlight one issue. So, for example, tax recon, I can see I'm out with 28,224. So if I go to my tax calculation, I see that my profit before tax was 100. I'm looking at the prior year financials, right? And I see, okay, well, that is correct. The tax on my tax calc is correct. It's showing 28,224. So what have I done wrong? So if I look at my detailed income statement, it's a quick shortcut to check it out. I see that my income tax is not showing anything. So I'm missing my income tax expense. So I go back to my trial balance. Let's have a look, see at my 2023. Okay, looking. I don't see a tax account. Oh dear, what have I done wrong? So for some reason, my TB missed my tax calc because the client maybe didn't post it or whatever the case may be. So I need to fix that. How am I going to fix that? So all I'm going to do is simply this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to create a number. Just want to make sure I get the right numbers. So I now need to add information to my TB to pull it back into my financial statements. So I'm going to add my trial balance entry. So what's important? Account number. Okay. I'm going to go income tax expense. Okay. And I'm going to assign it a link. So where does it need to go? It's a tax. So we're going to type in tax. Lots of things to look through. So I know that tax starts with T. So let's see if I can track down a T. Okay. There you'll see deferred tax and you'll see taxation current. So again, we split according to the various options that you may need. So I know mine was just taxation current. Okay. And I'm going to select it. So I've added my income tax expense to my account. I do see that I have a tax payables with a 0 account. Ooh, okay. So therefore I know I just need to process a journal. So in financial data, got journal entries. Now I can process journals in 2024. I can also process a journal in 2023. I'm going to go and process my journal. It's just going to be correction of tax because I accidentally left it off the TB or the client did. And I simply just press enter to acknowledge that I'm on tax journal 1. But what type of journal am I doing? That brings me to our types of journals. Got budget. Budget is only going to affect a budget TB. We'll kind of touch on that, I think, in advanced. Drafting. Well, what happens if you need to split something between your current portion and your long-term portion? You could use the drafting journal because you don't necessarily have to give that to the client. Again, up to you how you want to handle it. Interim also only affects your interim trial balance for audit purposes. Normal adjusting, well, in this case, it is a normal adjusting. They left it off. We need to include it. If I mark it as not recorded, basically what this does is it gives you your whole journal. And maybe you want to see the effect of something in your financials. So you could go and you could process this very long journal, mark it as not recorded, see what the effect is, instead of having to do the journal, delete the journal, redo the journal in the correct manner. You can just simply mark it as not recorded until you have the correct information on hand. Overs and unders, that's more of an audit side. And then standing journal is our lovely journal for our consolidations. Again, covered in advance, but basically it implies that if I have a journal that I post religiously every year and it's the same amount and the same account affected, well, if I process it in 2023 and I roll forward to 2024, that journal will basically copy paste into 2024 for me. Don't have to repost the journal every tax year. Okay, so I've done a normal adjusting journal. Now, what am I doing? Well, I need to raise my issue. So I'm going to add my adjustment here. We're looking for my tax. So I'm using the green bar, which we know is the filter bar. Okay, so I'm filtering, finding, going to go and I'm going to post my journal. So again, how do you post the journal? Every debit needs a corresponding credit. So how do we post our journals in here? Well, the debits are positives, the credits are minus. So I'm just going to go and process my journal accordingly. Okay. And the beauty is once I process this journal, you're going to see quite a few automated corrections happen on my status. So I'm just going to jump straight through to my financials. Now I'm going to go to my trial balance. And maybe I should have jumped to my financials. Okay. What I'm going to see now is I no longer have a problem here. Okay. 28,224. That's what it should be on my balance sheet. 28,224 should be on my income statement. Okay. And then I'm going to go to my status. I've cleared my 28,224 error there. Let's have a look. Wow. Retained income problem solved. My statement of financial position problem solved. Awesome. Now we're going to get stuck into the fun parts. Yeah. Now I've got statement of cash flows. We all love a cash flow. But the beauty in Draftworx is that cash flow is pretty much automated. I'm going to touch on it when I get to it. Just hang 10. All right. Property, plant, and equipment recon. And actually, all the way to other financial liabilities. I'm going to give you a little bit of my tip, right? So if I see my statement of cash flows is out, right? Generally, 90% of the time, if it's out there, it has something to do with a recon, okay? So the way the financials have been set up, we read the information from the trial balance, we read the information from the notes, therefore they all talk to each other. So if I have reconciling items, I kind of need to tell the system I have reconciling items. So we're going to break it down into the next category. My dear old property, plant, and equipment recon. Okay. Before I jump directly to my recon, I want to highlight something for you. Look at my balance sheet. Okay. If my status sheet was hidden and like I see figures, don't want to see it, I want to hide it, gives me PTSD to see differences, right? It's still going to tell me, hey, hang 10, you've got problems. There's a possible note mismatch. Okay. So early on, I said, when we fill in your trial balance, your notes automatically open. So you'll see in my balance sheet, I've got a note number. Balance sheet, note number. Cool. Income statement, amount, note number. They're all opened. Okay. So I know for a fact I can easily jump to those notes using the hyperlink. Okay. Remember, blue word underscore jumps you to where you want to go. So where do we want to go? We want to go to the PPE. So I'm jumping to my PPE note. And what you're going to notice is there's my heading, my note number. Now I've got my recon. So what is a PPE note other than a big fat reconciliation? Right. Looking at my fixed asset schedule in front of me, and I see, okay, balance as at the beginning of the year. Well, it was 100. Yes, that was 18. That's 82. So that's correct. Cool. I see depreciation has pulled in under the correct category, like smart linking. Go down a bit. Now, I see that my property, plant, and equipment at the end of the year mathematically says to me it should be 36,000. But I'm looking at my, fixed asset recon, and it's actually 216,000. So this section here, the closing balance, right? This is actually pulling directly from your trial balance. So in other words, when you see your differences in this line, okay, it's taking your trial balance figures less your reconciling items. So why are my motor vehicles 36? Well, mathematically 82 less 46 gives me 36. Looking at my fixed asset schedule, what's on my fixed asset schedule? Well, depending on how involved your client's business is or how involved your business is, you could have additions, you could have fair value adjustments, you could have additions, disposals, any other type of movement. Now, keep in mind, when we pull in your trial balance information, we're pulling in the closing balance at the end of the year. So I don't know how I ended up going from 100 to 280. Maybe I had a fair value adjustment. Well, I need to indicate that. How do I indicate that? So what you'll note is some colors. There's lovely little blue cells, okay? And in these blue cells, we refer to them as input cells, okay? So in other words, I can input information, update information. It allows me to easily put that information in without having to say bug a manager or a partner to go and type that information in for me. So looking at my asset register, I had an addition of 180,000 for the year. So there we go. Going to add my 180. Okay. I also, however, purchased land and buildings in that year. So I need to go in and put my 350 that I acquired. Great. No longer have the difference there. This figure here agrees to this figure here. This figure here agrees to my closing balance. Okay. Scroll down a little bit, and depending on, obviously, you'll see that you have your prior year recon. So yeah, you'll see recon for 2023. Depending on your asset register, okay, one thing to note, if you only have 2 tax years, like I do, okay, these figures would be 0. So if you had a 3rd year trial balance and there were opening balances, blue cell means you can update it, okay? Or best bet is pull in that 3rd year trial balance because it's going to affect your cash flow at the end of the day as well. Now I go back to my trial balance, okay, I purchased assets of 100,000 that year. There we go. Gotten rid of my difference. I'm not just force balancing this. I did legit buy 100,000, and I can see that because I had nothing. There's my 100. It gives me my 100. My depreciation gives me my accumulated, and 82 equals 82. Let's bounce back to my balance sheet. Okay. No longer getting an error saying possible note mismatch. Go back to my status. No more issues with my cash flow. So that's cool. I don't need to focus on that now. PPE's sorted. Okay, we obviously have a current year tax problem that we need to journalize. But now I've got my other changes in equity. Okay, well, how is that out? So again, we're going to jump to that sheet. Okay, so what is a statement of changes in equity sheet? A really big reconciliation. Okay, as you can see, issued capital, you have all your different reserves, revaluation surplus, administrative funds, all of those, okay? Retained income, obviously, pulls in all your profits for the year. So I do see quite a few blue cells. Again, what are the other reserves? Well, they could have profit and loss movements or other comprehensive income movements, which you would have obviously allocated on your TB. But in some cases, there's intercompany transfers or there's movements that needs to be elaborated on. So we have the blue cells. So I'm looking at, because I really want to track why I'm 50 Rand out according to my status. Check, check, check. This agrees to my prior year financials. I'm happy. Okay. I now see, okay, I had 100. Yep, that's kind of looking right. Up to say to me, I have other changes not yet reconciled. Well, it just so happens that this entity went and purchased or issued additional capital, should I say. So I had a movement. I need to now tell my recon what that 50 was. So I can go, in this case, I do have a line, issue of equity. I do also have other 1 to other 5. So I can add and edit. So I could go and I could say new addition for whatever reason. Okay, so you can see easily updatable, easily editable. But I know that this was issue of capital. I'm going to go and I'm going to enter my 50. I now no longer have the other changes being bold and red, don't have a difference. And apart from my tax issue, which we'll fix later, my status sheet is pretty much cleared. So I'm going to just hide it for now. Okay. This brings me to a few of the colors. So we've gone through that blue color, okay, i.e. this dark blue, okay. But I'm looking at my financials and you'll kind of see it throughout, but I like to focus on it on the director's report because it's really cool to show that one off. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to explain something. Okay, now I see. All right, I'm going to focus on my going concern paragraph. Okay, I see that I've got the annual financial statements have been prepared. Awesome. There's a whole lot of other paragraphs below. So maybe my directors, because remember, your director's report is basically what your directors want to report on. So there may be a paragraph that you are looking at and you can see, okay, but it's got a blue background, right? Why is there a blue background? Why are there white backgrounds? Why do I see ones in some cases? Why do I see zeros or the dashes? What does this all mean? Okay, so when I want to look at something, there are three ways to preview. I can preview financials, which will preview my financials as a whole. Okay, I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to save that up for a little bit later. I can preview one sheet at a time, and this would just give me like one page or the 2 pages, and then I can print them, send them to the client. Maybe they can sign something. Okay, but I have a really cool feature called live. So when I say live preview, it's going to split your screen into 2. And it's going to effectively give you the output of what your PDF document will look like when it's signed. Okay, so there we go. Going concern, great. It's just showing me this paragraph. It's got the white background, okay? But my directors have said to me, hey, listen, I actually want to include this, that they believe there's adequate financial resources. You know, they want to add it to their going concern paragraph. That's fine. They're the client. They want to add it. It's their director's report. Cool beans. Let's add it. But Nicole, it's not printing. It's there on the left-hand side, but it's not on my print preview. Why? So what we've effectively done is, and I'm going to jump to the cover to cover it. Remember, we had the trading as field, okay? If I don't have information or if I don't want to use it, it's a placeholder because maybe I do have a trading as name in another client. Ultimately, what we do is all the little blue highlighted rows or paragraphs are placeholders for potential usage. So if I had a trading as name, it would have populated, it would have printed. I don't have the trading as name, don't need to show it on my financial statements. We've hidden it from printing. So the same goes for those paragraphs. Now, how would I turn a paragraph on? Okay. I can't feed it a cookie. It's a paragraph. So how else can I turn it on? Well, what we have is zeros and ones, okay? The 0 effectively means it's off, so it's not going to print. So I want to put it on, so I'm going to say 1. When I type in 1 in the gray column that I'm currently in, you will now see it's going to print that row for me or that paragraph, okay? Another alternative, if you see something hidden and you want to show it, okay, is in my design tab, okay? I've also got an option called row visibility, and I can choose to show a row, okay? Purposefully showing 3 rows because I want to just show one more feature in your director's report. Now, obviously, the directors have specifically requested, you know, adequate resources, yada, yada, yada. Awesome. However, they want to add their own paragraph, okay? So I could choose to insert rows and do all of that. So again, that's also fairly easy. I can go to format, I can go to insert, and I can insert a sheet row, maybe 1 or 2, and I can say, hey, new row, happy days. Okay, but what happens if I'm never going to use this paragraph in the future, okay? And I want to use it or I want to update it. Well, you can also go and just type over it. And you can be like, the directors declared all Tuesdays as Taco Tuesdays. Okay. Can guarantee you that is not compliant with any acts. It's just entertaining for this purpose, just to show you that you can update it. Please don't put in that the directors declared all Tuesdays as Taco Tuesdays. Yeah, this is just purely presentation purposes. You need to remember that whatever changes you do, you remain compliant with whatever reporting framework you are using. Okay. All right. So as you can see, I can now go and turn on rows, turn off rows, hide what I don't want to show what I need to show. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go to I'm going to turn off live for a second. Okay, on my cover page at the bottom. Okay, very crucial piece of information here. Again, we're in compliance with the Companies Act of South Africa. So I don't think they'd be keen to know it's Taco Tuesdays. So just remember that whatever you do, please remain compliant. Okay, make sure that the framework is applied accordingly and all of that. Now, at the bottom here, you'll see I've got information I can add. Okay, so I can go and I can say, this is prepared by who? So who prepared my financials? Well, Nicole did. So if I type in that blue block, I want you to focus under audited financial statements in compliance with the Companies Act. And you can see there, I've got the word prepared by blank. When I enter my name and I press enter, it updates that cell for me. Okay. So you ever need to update any of that information that you see, just keep in mind, it is at the bottom here. And because it's in the blued out hidden paragraphs, it will not show on your cover page. Then we get to our index. So when we used to use the Excel financials back in the Flintstone ages, if I made any changes to my financials, I always used to cry internally because that meant I had to come back to my index page. I had to update my page number. I then had to find the corresponding report that had the reference to the page number, and I had to update that too. The beauty here is once we do a full preview, you will see that all my page numbers will automatically update, pull through to where they are required, and any changes I do throughout the course of drafting, it will update as it goes. Lots of obviously blue cells, lots of information. So I'm just going to do a live preview. Okay. Now, some of the OCD in me is like, this looks a little bit messy. Okay. Messy in the terms of, I see business address, I see postal address, it's repetitive. Okay. Maybe I don't want to show that on this page. All right. That's fine. So how are we going to do that? Well, Nicole, you did say you could go and show and hide rows, but that seems a lot excessive and tedious if I have to now go and turn off each and every row. So what I'm going to highlight, and it goes throughout our financial statements, is called groupings. Okay. So wherever you see, and in this case, we're looking at postal address. Okay. So there's postal address. It's my heading, for example. And I've got a little square with a minus and a line that goes all the way down. So that line that goes all the way down basically is all inclusive of my postal address information. Now the magic comes here. Okay. This, like I say, grouping goes throughout our financials. You'll see them throughout the notes and all of that. If I close this little minus and I turn it into a plus, on my live preview, I've now hidden my postal address from printing. I've got my tax number duplicating. So depending on the outlayer that I'd want, maybe I wanted to show reference numbers, tax number, and all the others. Maybe I just want to show tax number. So again, I have the power to go and turn something on and turn something off just by clicking a button or turning a minus into a plus. So I'll show tax number. Okay. Then of course, here's that crucial little change up in your settings. As you saw, I did nothing to update my firm details when I created this client. I kept my settings information and my info has pulled straight through to my financials. I can then choose, do I want to be called the preparer? Do I want to be called a chartered accountant? Choose it, turn what's not relevant on, off, and there I've now kind of taken my OCD down and made it a bit like how I wanted it to look. Awesome. Okay. Directors' responsibilities and approval. This is governed by the standard. So one thing you're going to notice here is, just 1 second, I wonder if I can turn my camera on quickly. Just so I can show and prove. So if you see in that paragraph, if I type anything, nothing is going to change, okay? Why is that? Well, it's simply put as this, okay? Where we have important information, i.e. something that's governed by the standard, i.e. things that are linked to your trial balance that you don't want to be force balanced or anything like that, we've locked it down. Now, how do I know it's locked down? Well, first test was I couldn't type over the sentence. The second indication is if I highlight over here, you'll see in the formula bar, there's a grayed out color, all right? If I hop to my directives where I was easily able to type over something, you'll see that the formula bar is white, okay? That indicates things that have been locked down. So where's important information? Balance sheet. Is it locked down? Yes, it is, because we want to read through that information and know where it came from. Okay, we don't want to override something and then cause the financial statements to not balance. Okay, so that brings us to our little kind of protection such. Okay, it also gives everyone a little bit of satisfaction knowing that not everything is easily editable. So how would I edit something if I had to? Let's say I was the partner and it was something locked. Well, we do have what we call our password levels, okay? So on my Draftworx logo, I have a beautiful feature called login, and I can enter a password. Please note, the password has to be requested via email. Support team cannot just give it to anyone, purely for security reasons, okay? What password levels are there and why are there password levels? Well, with passwords and levels like that, obviously with power comes great responsibility. So what levels do I have? Well, as we can see, I can't edit. So I'm currently at a clerk level. So I can edit what is editable, but obviously partners need to log in, update as they need to. If I'm a manager and I need to review as a manager, I have my own access. I can log in, sign off as a manager, great stuff. If I'm a partner, log in as my partner, sign in off as a partner. There you've got your 3 little levels. Okay, great. So in your response, like I said, and just to highlight what our dear Taff showed, you will see that my financial statements were signed on 14 Jan 2025. So there's the date. If I didn't want the date, you would change it like Taff did to show the line. So that's how you can see the difference in that setup. Okay, audit report, very basic. I'm not going to go into too much detail here. We do have a template. You can replace it. This is all covered in advanced. Here's my compilation report. There's my information coming from there. Great stuff. Now, with my balance sheet, obviously, one would just want to run through it so you can see, all right, there's my PPE. Again, I can jump across to the note. What's the number 3002? Well, 3002 will take me to my lead schedule. My lead schedule will break down my assets for me. I can check it and I can have a look at it. Right. Okay. Now, what happens if I'm very, very new and I see a loan to shareholder, but I'm not quite sure what the shareholder loan is? Well, on our sideline here, you do have an option. There's a shortcut. You can drill down. It'll show you what makes up that account. I, however, find this greatly useful in cash flow because maybe you're not fully aware where we came up with the amounts. So if I go and I click on an amount, it'll show me accounts payables, current versus prior, great stuff. Okay, awesome. Okay, so SOP, again, it'll show you, you jump across to your note that you need. Now, notes 2 and notes 3 are all split according to certain areas. So of course, notes are mostly your balance sheet. So notes 1, I think, is all your assets. Notes 2, a little bit of your equity and liabilities. Notes 3 are mostly all your income statement items, as well as additional disclosures. So as mentioned previously, if you are looking for something, please hop on to support. We have a phenomenal team. I promise you they are not AI. Some of those responses times seem a little bit robotic. We all have a love for coffee. We all have a love for, sleep and all those fun, entertaining things. So we are pretty much exactly like you. We're human. We do just have a very quick response time, which we like to show off every now and then. Okay, but with that, obviously, some of our remote support, we are not allowed to provide can help you with everything else, just barring accounting advice. But we'll most likely refer you into the right direction, either refer to your manager, your partner, and all of those. Okay. Now, I did say I was going to touch up on my cash flow. So in my instance, my cash flow, if I'm looking at it, is balancing. I'm going to go down. It's balancing. Awesome. So in other words, Draftworx has pulled in all my figures for me. I did not have to spend 17,000 hours trying to figure out the movements. We have done that for you. Okay. To note, if you do have 2 tax years and it picks up that you actually have more than 2 tax years, yours may look a little different. There'll be blue cells on the 2023 year. That means I need to either manually put the amounts in the blue cells, or pull in a third tax year. It'll automate it for me. Awesome. Okay. But Nicole, what are these yellow looking cells? So the yellow looking cells are our helper cells. Okay. I like to call them the minion cells because they do my job for me when I need them to. So what is a minion cell? What can it do? Well, if I wanted to move amounts around, let's say to disclose it for a specific reason, I didn't want my trade accounts payable to show, but rather operating payables, I can go and I can enter amount in the yellow cell and I can move it to another cell. So honesty cell, basically showing you without you having to manually type in anything and edit formulas. You can simply go and do that over here. Okay, all right, awesome. Hopefully everyone's still with me and everyone's still awake. Okay, we are almost at the end of this. I'm now going to get to a point where, accounting policies. Of course, like I said, PPE is there. There we go. I go and I can update the years and everything and all of that. But what am I noticing? PPE is automatically opened. There's my trade and other receivables. So it's picked up what my balance sheet has. It's opened my accounting policy. Yes, the accounting policies are editable. Again, just make sure that you are complying. If you're not using that paragraph, but you want to use that paragraph, you have the power to do so. Okay. Now, one would run through their notes, check it out. And again, one can simply see that in my notes, I am able to obviously update my disclosures. I've got my PPE right, I've got financial assets, great. Looking through all of these. In our next session, we will go through notes and creating your own notes and making it all look very pretty with a whole lot of lovely tips and tricks from our amazing team. That is up and coming. So hang 10 because we break down how we build our notes. We go into detail about where the notes come from. So it is something exciting and thrilling to watch. I absolutely love building a note. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of go through my notes. Yeah. Okay. So your ordinary share capital, well, you can see generally a clerk didn't need to ask someone to log in. They can go and say, well, it was 150 times 1 rand, all of that. So as you can see, I can update my notes as I need to. Detailed income statement, well, awesome. Okay, it's going to pull in everything that needs to from those. As you can see, it's pulled in my revenue note. It's got my descriptions. Aha, cookies is showing as cookies. Cookie Monster will be very happy to know that he spent 15K on cookies this year. Okay, I don't know if that's really good or not, but we'll see. And then tax calculation, okay, did kind of touch on it briefly, but what you do want to pay attention to is you can see here we have questions. Where we have questions, you just need to answer them. So is it a farming entity? Yes or no? Okay, can choose. If I am a small business, I can go and I can indicate yes. And even better, I can indicate which tax year. So gonna highlight something here. Obviously, it's assuming I'm taxed at the normal tax rates. The minute I go and indicate that I am a small business, it's going to allocate it to the SBC tax for me. Okay, so when working through your tax calc, one needs to just kind of obviously work through your tax calc and say, okay, well, there's my profit before tax. Did I have any debit adjustments? Looking here, don't have many options, but I see a little drop down. So you'll see we have all the options that are available on your tax return. You just need to select it. And if you do, it'll increase the rows available for you to make use of, okay? Don't need to go and insert your own rows and try and type in. There are drop downs. It does automatically increase the options available for you. We've also made provisions for your capital gains and your assessed loss. So if you click on the calc, it'll take you to where your capital gains tax is. You'd go, you'd fill in your proceeds, your base costs as you normally would, and whatever is calculated will pull through up to the top here for you automatically. Same goes for your assessed loss. And of course, with the assessed loss comes the assessed loss limitation. So we have made a provision for it. You do need to indicate over here, okay? And then it'll calculate, pull through to the top for you. When you're happy with this, I'm now at a point where I'm like, woohoo, I am going to check out my financials. So I'm going to preview them. So let's preview my financials. So format, click on the word preview, click on financials. And now I'm going to get my output. So it's going to mini-mine it a little bit so that we can see it in a bit more of a thing. Okay, so here we go. Got financial statements, page numbers. And if we go down, page numbers have automatically pulled through to the relevant reports. Again, you didn't have to worry about that. We've got you covered. Okay, looking at this, I'm like, surely there's a few things I can do to make it just a little bit more wow. So if you are drafting a set of financials and you obviously need to add a watermark, so instead of having to stamp them one page at a time or try and write in draft, we do have an embedded watermark. So on this tab over here. So one thing to note, if the word says preview, you'll know that you're in your PDF output, okay? If it's just showing IFRS SME, you'll know that this is your financials for editing, okay? So preview, I want to just set it up to print it. So I need a watermark added. I'm going to embed my watermark. There's draft, okay? I can change the word draft to first review, final review, whatever the case may be. Remember, whatever's in a field will be your output. I'm a colorful person. I like blue, but you can choose from all the other colors. If you really want to go and make it out there, you can change it to red so that they know it's draft, okay? When it is no longer applicable, you simply just deactivate it by turning the tick into an X, okay? Maybe I want to be a little bit more fancy and I want to add a page border. Well, I can go and I can click on page border. And again, I can choose black, I can choose red, I can choose any color I want to, but it'll add a nice little border. Can increase the length of the border that I want to. Entirely depends up to me. Partners like, no, we don't do page borders here. So all you do is you come back to your print preview, deselect it, no longer there. Okay. If you are of the, where's my balance sheet? If you have got those financials where your lines are extended horizontally, you're looking here and you're like, I need the lines. Okay. It's a print preview setting. Again, I'm still in my tab all. I go to miscellaneous and I can see that I can extend the lines horizontally. When I do, my output will show as follows, and I now have all my lines going across. So you're very much able to update or make your PDF output as pretty as you want it to be. If I've got colors, I can go and I can say, well, you know, I can show my colors, so I can go and clear the cell backgrounds. And wherever there were color, I will now print, okay? If you don't want these colors printing, they're the ignore system colors. Therefore, I can then deactivate that, okay? Now, we're in an age where financials have actually become competitive. Everyone wants them to look really cool. So you can add a cover image, all right? I've got letterheads. So a lot of us do have our own letterheads. A lot of our clients actually have their own logo. What happens if I've got my letterhead and my logo and I want to include it in my financials? How can I do that? Okay, so letterhead 1 in my case, I'm going to click on the 3 dots. And this has to be in a picture format, okay? So I'm going to go and I'm going to pull in my company logo, okay? And for letterhead 2, again, click the 3 dots, go find it. And as I said, has to be a picture format, okay? So it's only going to search for an image file. You can convert your letterhead from PDF to image, no problem, okay? Now I've gone and I've done that, but it's done nothing to my system. So in my letterheads, for letterhead 1, you'll see that I've got options. So it's a header image and I can choose a position. Can go make it full screen, top left, but you know what? I want it in the middle center and I want it to go to my cover page. So I scroll all the way down of letterheads. You'll see worksheets, apply the letterhead where? Cover. Aha! And now I have a pretty picture included in my financial statements. Okay, so logo added, awesome. Let's go to my compilation report. Well, there's my report of the compiler. I see number 2. So number 2 indicates what is your letterhead. Okay, so report of the compiler, gonna click it and it will embed my image. Awesome. Those are 2 ways you can do this. However, I'm now going to call on our dear friend Neo, or as we affectionately call him, Chief, to show us his cool and custom tips when it comes to letterheads. Neo, the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you, Nicole. Right, so as Nicole mentioned, Draftworx allows you to make your financials pretty, as she says. And one way to do this is by the use of letterheads, therefore making it your own in how you actually want the letterhead to basically talk to your company and thus talk to your client. And I just wanted to show you, how to play around with your letterhead if it's not seated where you want to sit or you want to move around the letterhead a bit. And so, as she mentioned, under letterhead perhaps 1, you would then import it. So let's do that quickly. We'll go to our letterheads and here's my letterhead. It will be in either JPEG or PNG format as Nicole mentioned. And we also always want to ensure that letterhead number 1 is then assigned to whichever report or the sheet that you actually want your letterhead showing. So if I go to my report compiler, there's my letterhead. But there's a problem. The letterhead is now overlying my font on the report. So what do I do about this? Well, the nice thing about it is you can actually adjust your letterhead height. And this is where we do it under the options for the letterhead. Under margins, you'll see where it says header. So if we adjust our header height to say 5.2, for example, and click enter, you'll now see that things would have changed a bit. And so voila, the font has now gone down. My letterhead is a bit at the top now, which is incredible because now it means it can be, more presentable, and obviously to the user of the financial statements, they'll also enjoy reading it without having the letterhead obscure any part of the report. You'll also notice that my letterhead had a footer that's also there, and yeah, it's showing quite good on my report. Now, there's one more thing that you can do with letterheads, and with that, I actually want to point out to you what letterheads allow us to do, say, on reports that go over 1 page, and perhaps you've got a header that you only want to show on just say the first page of the letterhead of the report, and then you've also got a footer that you'd rather have on all pages of your report. So what would you do in such a case? Well, let's import our letterhead again. In this case, let's start with our footer. Now, our footer, we want to have it on all pages of our report. So in this case, we've imported it. If we scroll down, we just want to ensure that letterhead 1 is applied to the report. And under the options for the letterhead, once again, now we get to choose where we want this footer to show. Is it all pages? Yes, we want it to show on all pages. And once we do that, you'll notice now the footer appears on the report on page 1 as well as page 2. But remember, we said we also want the header to appear even though it's on the first page only of the report. And so what we can do is we can actually go back to the financials and import that part of the header as an image. Because now remember, we want to have this done differently, being the footer being on 2 separate pages, but this particular one on just the one. So if you go to your design tab, you can actually go there and import an image or insert an image. So let's quickly go there, find our image, double click on it, and we get to import it. Now, Nicole mentioned how the live preview is such an awesome and time-saving feature. So while we're here, we can actually live preview. And we notice that our image is actually now showing as a header. Our footer is still there, showing on both pages. But now there's a problem. If we go up, we find that the header is still overlapping our font there. So what we can do is we can actually click on the image, make whatever adjustments we can, perhaps make it smaller, and click enter on your keyboard. And the minute you do this, you'll notice that your live preview adjusts to this. But it's still a bit, overlapping there. Let's reduce it a bit and click enter. And once you do, it's now fine, it's sorted. And the wonderful thing about it is you don't get to go to your preview screen again. You can actually just see on the live preview whether everything is still showing perfectly. And indeed it is. So it's a wonderful feature. It really allows us to make the financials our own, play around with it, insert images if we will. And that's the wonderful thing about Draftworx. It actually also saves us time in the process. So yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you. And thank you so much. Over to you, Nicole.
Neo, thank you, you rock star. I mean, I know we're not talking about the rapper over here, but he is definitely chief of some customs there. As you mentioned, yeah, that is such a cool feature because people do love creating their own letterheads. So, sometimes the whole conversion process is a bit trickier, but you have your logo. Well done, Neo. That was awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So, Neo gracefully covered our footers and our headers, but I just want to touch up on a few of the other tabs, and then I promise you I'm almost done. On the notes little tab here, you've also got ways where you can set up format how you want them to look. All right. So currently what I'm looking at is I've got note 4.1, and it's sitting in my margin. Now I know old school ways that would you bind your financial statements for formal purposes. So what happens if I actually want that to be included underneath my main heading? Well, we've got you covered again. So note numbers, note number position, original. I can go and I can say prepend to the note. All right. When I do, you'll see it now squishes it in, makes it a little bit more, presentable to you per se, if that's what you would like. Again, I've got 4.1 and I only have one note. Maybe I don't want the 4.1 to show. Well, we've got the option where it says omit loan subnote numbers. So I'm going to activate that. And where I only have one little note, I've got 4, there's my balances. There we go. I've now kind of neatened it up as to how I'd like it to look. The best part is always, if you've got the time, play around with the feature. Tick this, see what the outcome is. If you like it, great. If you don't, revert back to what it was. It's, again, beauty in Draftworx. You can always go back to what you want. Your headers is a nice one because maybe, as we can see, my PPE note is on one page. I've got 2024, I've got 2023. So having 24 and 23 on this page doesn't quite make sense. So I can choose to turn it off. So you'll see I've got 2 columns, visible and restated. So depending on what wording or what year I want to turn off, I simply select the page. Okay. So I'm selecting my page number 17 just because I know it is page 17. And voila, I Tipexed out the tax year. I didn't have to print this and Tipix it. I could just simply click a button. Okay. Inserts. We are going to cover this awesome feature in advance. I absolutely love it. Anyone who does auditing should also love it because ultimately what's going to happen is you get to replace a document with a signed document or a updated schedule that you need to include into your financial statements. So instead of having to try and PDF merge and make things look like they came from the same system, we've inbuilt inserts for that exact reason. So hang 10 for advanced because this is a really cool feature. I absolutely love, 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 love it. All right. So there we go. How do I print my financials? Well, you can print to a printer. You can go and save as a PDF. You can save as encrypted. You can basically choose how you'd like to print it. Okay. Right. Save as PDF. You can email it to the client. So they've got their financials in 2 hours. Awesome sauce. Now, okay. Once you get to an end of a tax year, okay, not once have I saved my financial statements. So I just want to highlight, if you do, or if you are those type and you want to save things, there's the little save button over there. You click it, it'll save the financial statements. If you don't click there or you forget to, you'll see there's an X next to your financials. If I click it, we will always ask you in your financial statements to confirm the save. So you can say yes, say no. If you say no, unfortunately, you'll lose some work, not all work. Okay, we do have an auto save feature, which we'll cover in advanced, where I'm able to recover those financials. So I'm just simply going to say yes. Now, from my 2024 file, what do I want to do? I want to create a 2025 file. So how do I create a 2025 file? Because I've spent so much time getting this ready and right, and it's perfect. I love the financials, done so much work to it. I really want to make 25 easy. So client setup, do a year-end close, okay? Over here, I'm going to ask, do I want to confirm a roll forward? Well, yes, I'd like to get started on 2025. And I really want to see what Nicole was bragging about. So I see roll forward options, okay? Copy current financials. Why would I want to copy the current? Well, if I copy current, I'm going to keep all my work that I've just done. Update default reports, we'll explain. Move current notes to prior, you'll see now. And then, of course, I'm going to keep my same framework. If I have to switch a framework while I'm rolling over, I'll explain it in advance, but just remember that it effectively gives you a new set of financials. So now I'm going to say next. Okay, we are very much key on compliance and updates. So if anyone releases a disclosure update that you require in your financial statements, on roll forward, what happens is we look at the database and we see, okay, you know what? This file was missing the sustainability report. We'll insert it for you. Okay, so any tax changes will update. You don't lose any work when you do apply a disclosure update. We just insert it like a little bunch of ninjas. Voila, your disclosure is updated. You're still compliant. Update reports. Okay, you'll see that I've got response and all the other reports ticked. Directors and accounting policies not ticked. Why is that? Well, all the ticked ones are governed by standards. So if they change anything, we want you to have the most recent and updated version, okay? So of course, we're going to ask you, keep the, let's replace it with the updated version. But I wouldn't want to update my director's report. I want to kind of keep all of that so I don't have to redo that every tax year. And of course, I'd say next, if I had working papers, I would update them, but that is for working papers discussion on the 28th. Going to finish and bing, bang, bang, bada, boom. The system's going to run a whole lot of little tricks in the background. You can quickly go collect your new tax year file if you want to. If you're still printing working papers, you're going to come back to your desk and you're going to be like, oh, let's have a look. I'm now in 2025, okay? Let's see if I was talking nonsense. So client setup. All my information is still there. Obviously, anything that requires updating, I would do so, okay? Whether it's directors, whether it's dates, you would update it. Working trial balance, aha, all my information still all there. My links have kept their names. All I need to do now is import my 2025 TB, go to my financial statements, and what do you know? My financials look exactly like they did in 2024. I don't have any unnecessary tabs open. If I go to my director's report, yes, Taco Tuesdays are still applicable. Everything is kind of there. If I go to my cash flow, where I had inserted information, it's moved to the next year. So I don't have to worry about updating that. If I go to my PPE note, even better. It's cleared my current year to make way for what I need, but moved my prior year to my prior year. And that is pretty much what I've got. Michelle, Clarissa, was there anything that someone wanted addressed at the end of this session?
Yes, there was someone that was just asking about the smart linking. If you can just quickly maybe go through that again.
Okay. All right, let me just quickly open up. Just want to clear the link numbers.
Nicole is just loading that quickly, and Shane will probably just chop this off at the end. So smart linking is machine learning. One of our very clever developers, actually director of development for cloud, developed it. So it's basically machine learning. So when you run smart linking, it checks to where everybody else has ever linked an account with that name or similar name, and it goes in and automatically links it for you. So everybody working together has actually built this for each other. So it's a fantastic feature, and great. Thanks for building it. It's awesome. Over to you, Nicole.
Thank you. I agree. Absolute awesome feature. Saves you a lot of time. So what I've done is I've just simply cleared a trial balance. Okay. So as you can see, if I had started from scratch, I'd have my information. I need to link it. So all I do is I click on the smart linking button. Okay. A pop-up is going to obviously pop up and ask me, am I sure? So I say yes. And what it's going to do is it's going to run through, as Earl said, it's just going to check where all these categories have previously either been assigned to, and kind of give you an assumption of, well, sales goods, I'm going to link it to sales goods, or sales fees, I've taken it to sale of goods. Yes, you still need to kind of overview it and check it for your own reasons to make sure it is complying to where you previously took it or you want to take it. But there it's gone and it's said, okay, repairs and maintenance, it's taken it all to my expense repairs and maintenance. It's matched my depreciation motor vehicles to the fact that I've got motor vehicles at cost, motor vehicles accumulated depreciation. So you can see how it's kind of taken the assumption mostly correctly. Some may need a little bit of updates here and there, which again, you have the power to go and choose your correct link if it's not to where you want it to be. And that kind of covers the smart linking. Anything else? Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening to me drone on. You guys are all awesome. We love us.
It was awesome, Nicole. Thank you so much. I found my replacement. Congratulations. Thank you to the Draftworx team for your energy and all your hard work, and of course to our fantastic clients. Thank you for all of your support and helping us make Draftworx better for you. So please, as always, let us know how to improve. We've been very busy during 2024, and you'll see all of those enhancements that we've been working on coming out in 2025. So a few of the items, there are going to be large feature additions to the audit side of Draftworx, specifically around the software side. We're looking forward to releasing a notification app a little bit later on in the year. So you no longer get death by notification when you're using the team setup for the notifications for the prepared, reviewed, etc. in the comments. And also we will see an automatic balance calculation, opening balance calculation. So basically we will eliminate that retained income issue of importing the next day and seeing that your RI is out. It'll even go so far as to raise a proposed journal to fix your retained income. That's a feature that's already available in cloud. And so if you want to see how it's going to work, be sure to join in next week for the cloud webinars. There are some major features and enhancements coming to cloud. So we look forward to showing that all to you. So don't miss it. But of course, if you haven't registered for the advanced session on Thursday, please register and attend. We're going to delve into the inner workings of Draftworx, and Nicole's going to take you through all of that. So again, thank you for everything. I hope everybody has a wonderful 2025.